Hi, my name is Shelby Skrhak with Success.com, and I'm co-host of the podcast Success Insider. And I am thrilled to bring you on set for the Success Magazine cover shoot for Scooter Braun. Scooter, or Scott, began his journey as a 19-year-old club promoter in Atlanta, and he's grown to become the owner of SB Projects, one of the largest, most powerful talent management companies in the industry. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Scott or Scooter?
You can call me Scooter. I guess my wife calls me Scott, and I feel like I'm in trouble a lot.
All right, well, we're trying not to get you in trouble here. So I started us off with a kind of laundry list of accomplishments, but it really started with a moment that you didn't hesitate. That's when you promised to have 800 people show up to a club, and it really kind of spiraled from there. Like, why didn't you hesitate when you had zero experience, when you're brand new at this? What gave you the confidence to just dive in?
One, I appreciate you doing your research, because most people, when they talk to me about stuff, don't know anything about that first nightclub. What you're referencing is I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was a freshman in college. A lot of kids had, access to go out and money to go out, and I just didn't have capital to do that. So I liked going out and having fun, and I went by a nightclub called Chaos. And I said, look, if I brought some people here next week, would you give me some money? And the guy looked at me and he said, yeah, sure. How many people can you bring? I said, well, how many people do you hold? He said, about 800. And I said, yeah, I could probably do that. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And the answer is pretty much, it goes for a lot of my career. I was too stupid to know that it was unreasonable. I was too naive to understand that it was unreasonable. So that always worked in my favor, because the idea of losing, the way my father and mother raised me, it was just kind of like, okay, you lose, you get up in the morning, you try again. And I didn't really think that I couldn't do it, and I went out and went to Kinko's, made a bunch of flyers, and kind of went and just started emailing people like crazy, and hired a bunch of girls that I knew to go out and flyer the campus with me. And next thing you know, we had 900 people standing outside of that nightclub the following Thursday.
Wow. And
that kind of started that whole process. But I think a lot of it is really, really hard work. But I also think a lot of it was luck. I have a lot of friends who work really, really hard and it hasn't happened for them. And I think I'm just very blessed and fortunate that a lot of things have gone my way in my career. Mm-hmm. And I'm not naive to the fact that that could stop tomorrow. So I kind of never let it get, blow up my head too much. I just kind of always look at everything as a blessing, and if it's going my way, it's probably not just for me, and I should probably figure out ways to kind of share it.
So tell me about your 19-year-old self.
My 19-year-old self was just trying to figure it out. I mean, I read a book about David Geffen, which really inspired me. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to have him become a mentor later in life and a friend. And he was a kid who grew up playing basketball competitively his whole life. The plan was to play college basketball for all 4 years. And I knew I wasn't going to the NBA at my size or my skill level. And I just wanted to figure out who I was and kind of where I fit in. And I never liked relying on people. So I wanted to build something, a company that I could kind of provide for other people but never have to ask for help. And at first I always thought it was a fear of failure that drove me. And as I got older, I realized it wasn't failure that ever drove me. I was never afraid of failure. It was actually disrespect. And when people told me I couldn't do things, when they told me that they didn't think I was capable, mm-hmm. I always just, this idea of equality that your parents teach you, my parents really said, like, everyone is equal. And when they teach you everyone is equal, a part of you starts to believe, well, if everyone's equal, why can't I do what everyone else has done?
Right.
Why can't, if that person's extraordinary but we're equal, I want to be extraordinary. And I just kind of started working that direction. And if you would have told the 19-year-old me that this would end up at 36, he would have said, that's pretty awesome, but now I'm here at 36, and now I want to keep pushing like that 19-year-old.
So a lot of your success depends on the early discovery of artists. Your most famous is Justin Bieber. What did you see in him and other artists that you've discovered, and why did you trust that your instinct was right?
First of all, what I saw was kind of a hole in the marketplace where I thought something was needed. For Justin specifically at the time, I was a big Michael Jackson fan, and I saw a lot of kids' music doing very, very well, but I felt like it wasn't good enough that adults would want to listen to it. And when the Jackson 5 was around, they made really angelic songs that reminded adults of when they believed in love before they got all jaded. And I thought he was capable of that when I saw him sing. I thought he could sing with soul. And I thought there was a huge space in the marketplace. And I saw very clearly from day one how to make him the biggest artist in the world. And I became obsessed with kind of getting to him because I just knew it. With Asher, it was a hole in the marketplace, same thing. And Asher taught me an important lesson of, you know, not every artist wants what you want. And you got to let them go on their own journey as well. But the main thing that made me kind of think that my gut was right was because I didn't care if it was wrong. Because I'm a firm believer that if you live your life by data completely, then you'll only do the reasonable thing. You know, you'll only kind of follow the status quo because the data will always point you to what's always been there. And if you're going to do something extraordinary, usually it's the unreasonable thing that becomes extraordinary. And I didn't have anything to lose. I didn't have kids. You know, I didn't have anyone relying on me. So if I had to go hungry for 6 days, I was ready to kind of take that on and handle that. And if I was wrong, then I felt okay with it because at least I tried.
So clearly you've got an eye for talent. Is that something that's easy for you? I mean, to be able to look at something and see below the surface what else is there and capable of coming up?
I just think that I'm pretty ordinary. I think that, you know, a lot of artists are extraordinary, so sometimes it's hard for them. They'll make extraordinary stuff, but the consumer, for the most part, is like me. They're pretty ordinary. So I think my gift is when I feel like I react to something, I kind of assume that millions of other people will too, because I'm pretty normal. You know, and I don't really find myself to be that extraordinary. I think I just have, you know, I have a opportunity and to kind of use the tools that were given to me to kind of help extraordinary people get seen.
Yeah.
And I really, it's wild, like even being here, I think it's crazy. Because I still feel like the 19-year-old kid in Atlanta with an idea that I'm trying to force down people's throats. So to be here and doing a cover and, you know, having this conversation, I just feel very, very lucky, and I hope that I say, you know, a couple smart things that make people actually believe I might know what the hell I'm talking about.
Right. So this idea of not being afraid, you didn't have anything to lose, so you weren't afraid to fail. That does take a little bit of confidence to realize that whatever happens, whatever the very bottom, the utmost failure that could happen here, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to be okay and I'm going to keep going from there. Was that something that your parents taught you?
I think so, but look, I think at this point in my life, the one thing when I do talks, the thing that usually shocks people is when I talk about my vulnerability. And I think it's actually the best thing I can share with people because then it helps them kind of deal with their own life. Even with all the success I've had at a young age, I still have nights where I'm up all night almost in tears because I'm scared and I feel like I got to make something happen. And you know, I'm beating myself up, yet I'm very self-aware that I don't have to, that I'm at a financial place in my life where I'm going to be okay, but I'm still beating myself up like I'm broke. And, you know, when you ask about kind of where that no fear came from, being very vulnerable and being honest with you, there was a point in my life where I was under a lot of pressure as a teenager because everyone had these huge expectations for me. And I remember I was at this place, it's hard to describe, but basically it was 3 stories and the window was open. And I remember walking over and I thought about jumping out the window. And I didn't want to kill myself. I just wanted all the pressure and the voices in my head to go away. And I ended up walking away from that window, but I came close. I never forgot it. That was probably the lowest point in my life. And I remember a week later, I had something happen where I was happy. And I realized only a week ago, I was so depressed that I almost jumped out of a window, and now I'm happy, and that's life. And I just promised myself I would never go to those extremes again. And so that moment kind of gave me the confidence to realize that that's the worst it's going to be. Right. You know, and part of the thing that makes me kind of have less fear now is the fact that I've embraced the fact that things end. You know, I've had an amazing run in my career. It could end tomorrow. You know, I've artists that like love me and I love them, but they could call me tomorrow and say, I don't want to work with you. You know, I've embraced the fact that one day I might get screwed. And if that day comes, and artists that I've had incredible runs with, they just break my heart one day, you know what? I still got to do stuff that was actually really incredible. And when that day comes, I'll deal with it. Until then, I'll be grateful for today.
Well, I'm glad you bring up vulnerability, because that's something that we all struggle with. How do you deal with that? And vulnerability in the sense that you're successful, you've got it all together, you make the right decisions, but if inside you still have that little bit of
Fear.
Yeah, fear and doubt that, am I making the right decision? Like, so how do you overcome that?
I think you commit. You trust your gut and you commit. And fear is a good thing. Fear makes you think. It doesn't make you complacent. It kind of pushes you. I can tell you with the One Love Manchester event, I had complete conviction in that idea. And I was very fortunate. I said the idea, and then 2 days later, Ariana, rightfully so, that was a big thing to ask of someone. Mm-hmm. And at the time, she couldn't continue with the tour. And 2 days later, she called me and said, I've been thinking about it. If I don't do something, these kids died in vain. Let's do your idea. And we had a lot of work to do. And the day before the concert, we were in London rehearsing, and the London attack happens. And I'm up that entire night driving in a car back to Manchester in the middle of the night as we're getting more information from the London Bridge and what happened. And I'm thinking to myself, for the first time, am I making the right decision?
Right.
You know, am I putting 55,000 people in harm's way? Like, is my brashness and, resolve going to hurt people? And you start to have doubts, but then you sit back and you realize there is a chance that's going to happen. But the whole reason we're doing this is because we need to make a statement that it could happen tomorrow, it could happen the next day, it could happen 3 months from now. But we need to keep living. We need to set that example. And you need to kind of trust that, your decisions are the right one, and you're not going to be right every single time. But you only make the shots that you try shooting. So, I don't know how to best answer the question other than the fact that, I'd rather feel failure and get a chance of success than feel nothing.
That's interesting, yeah. So let's talk about your view on failure. So I read your mission statement on the site. It says, so many of us go through life scared of the unknown that's to come. Our goal is to create an environment where fear and failure are nothing more than rest stops on the road to success. We want to motivate people to find their path to purpose and execute on it. So have you always had this notion of failure and that it's just a step in the path to success?
I don't think always. I think I discovered that along my own journey. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny that you're reading that, because to give you the background of that whole statement, where I said kind of at the end, you inspire the world to try.
Yeah.
My COO and my CMO for a long time, who are really close friends of mine, were trying to get me to write a mission statement, and I'm always working. So I never wanted to take the time to sit down and write something, because I was like working. And we were in New York taking a bunch of meetings, and they were like, hey, we got this one important meeting, and we set it up. I was like, okay, cool. And we get to this office, and we walk in, there's no one there. And Brad takes out his computer, slides across the table, and he goes, for the next 3 hours, we're going to stay here until you write your damn mission statement, because our company needs a mission statement. And I was so annoyed, because I value time in the day. Like, right. You want to work, you want to get things done. And I was like, And they were like, okay, so here's what we're thinking. And they start showing mission statements for about 30, 45 seconds. And I go, give me the computer. And they go, no, we want to talk. I was like, give me the computer. They literally slide the computer across the table. I wrote it in one stream of consciousness, slid it back across the table, and walked out of the room. and that's what you read now.
Right.
And then Brad got mad, because he was like, you could have done that the entire time. I've been waiting 8 months for this. But now I'm actually really glad that they made me do it, because I think it's important, because I never actually take time to do stuff like that. But that statement is kind of a culmination of a lot of things, the journey you go on. I named my holding company that owns SB Projects Ithaca, because my favorite poem, other than Rudyard Kipling's If, is this poem called Ithaca, this old Greek poem. Mm-hmm. And it talks about setting out on a journey to this island of Ithaca. It's a Greek island. Mm-hmm. And along the way, you'll find all these things. And when you finally reach Ithaca, if you find her poor, she will not have deceived you, because it was always about the journey. And I think that's life. It's people want to find an ending. There isn't an ending. you're never going to be truly happy. You're never going to be truly sad if you just continue. That's just life. You get a journey, you get one ride at this thing, and then when it's over, it's over. And I never really had the full sense of purpose until I had my kids. And I wrote that before I had kids.
Yeah.
And now I have an even more sense of purpose, the fact that, like, as long as I instill things in them, I'll get a chance to continue. Because in 100 years, my mentor said this to me, in 100 years, no one's going to remember me, so they sure as hell won't remember you. That's what he said to me. And I actually agree with that. No one's going to remember me, but they might feel my impact. And the truth is, I'll be dead, so what do I care?
Right.
You know, so try to do a positive thing. And if you're really caring about people knowing who you are in 100 years, you have a really narcissistic, weird view of the world, because no one really is going to care. Like, and you're dead. What? Like,
right.
You're dead.
Right.
Get over yourself.
Are you a pretty avid reader?
Depending on the week.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I consume a lot. I wish I read books more, because when I actually do get to read books, I'll like go on a little tangent where I'll read a bunch of different books.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly consuming. I read a lot of articles. Mm-hmm. And I like to watch documentaries.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're definitely curious and always looking for knowledge. And
I'm not complacent, and I'm restless, and I'm a weirdo, because if I died tomorrow and all those things that you said were the end of my life, I'd be pretty pissed off.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm 36 and I just feel like I'm getting started. And I don't want this to be it. I would like this to just be like a chapter 1. So like that is my biggest fear. My biggest fear is like I need to surpass this moment, because I'm not ready for it to be done.
Right. What gives you the gumption then? You started to allude to it, but the fact that you're never happy with what you've already accomplished, that you want to keep doing more. So where do you draw that inspiration from to
I think I'm sick.
Really?
I really think I'm sick in the head. Yeah. I think a part of me has a real problem, because I don't get joy from just like, it's a weird thing, because I'm a homebody and I like being alone, but then I'm super social and kind of like over the top sometimes. But the real truth is that if you and I went and saw a movie, a comedy, it could be something really funny, and I'll look to you to make sure you're laughing.
Really?
Like I like other people getting joy. Like I think that's why I was good at being a party promoter. I didn't do drugs. I didn't like care about chasing girls. Like I would do that without being a club promoter, not the drugs part.
Right.
But I really get joy out of kind of everyone else joining in. Like I say to my wife, like we go on vacations, I want to like bring people, and I like doing game nights, and so when you finish something, there's so many other people out there. There's like, it's also hard for me when I go out in public, because my wife like thinks it's funny, because like if we go out in a very public place, like I'm just so fascinated, because I'm staring at people. I'm like, what's your story? What's your story? What's yours? Like I want to know who everyone is. Like it's like, but that's the way I've always been. So kind of with my own journey of like pushing it, I've never really chased money. I kind of chase ideas and chase adventure. And when one's done, it's like when you were a kid, you'd finish a video game and you'd be like, spent all that time and now it's finished. Like I need something else.
Right.
So I need to consume, and I need to kind of chase, and it's why I like doing some extreme sports, and I like to have fun. And I just think that it's really, really nice when you get to a point of achievements where people want to celebrate your achievements. But that also sucks, because that means no one's insulting you or telling you you're a rookie or telling you can't do anything anymore. And then what are you supposed to do? And I remember I was leaving Apple. I had a meeting at Apple, and I've become really good friends with an amazing guy there named Eddie Q, who's like number 2 at Apple. And Eddie and I were walking out to the elevator, and he was asking me about something I was doing the following week, and we were going to meet up. And I said, I was like, you guys are building this new facility. I said, how many people working here now? And he told me, and I said, man, young people must love the job security of Apple. I thought I was just giving him a compliment. And Eddie literally stopped me in my tracks, and he goes, you can't think like that.
Why?
And I said, what exactly? I said, why? And he said, Steve always told us, look at the camera companies. They were huge multi-billion-dollar companies, and they're gone today.
Right.
He goes, the moment you think you have security, the moment you get complacent is the moment you die. And I'm hearing this from what is going to be the wealthiest company in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
And I was just inspired. I walked out there like, you always got to push. No matter where you are, you push.
Right.
And I just thought that was great.
So that hunger, that drive to just keep going.
I think the hunger, what happens is you kind of achieve one thing, and then you have to find the hunger in other things. Like I'm watching the Jimmy Iovine documentary now with Dr. Dre, and I'm fortunate enough to love Jimmy and know Jimmy. And a lot of these stories he's telling, I've sat there with Jimmy and heard them.
Yeah.
The one thing I always admired about Jimmy is like that he was able, Bruce Springsteen says in the doc, he was able to walk away and then go after another adventure. Because you could just sit in your own success, and that could be your story, but Jimmy always found a way to transcend. You know, he was an engineer, he became a producer, he became the biggest producer, and he's like, screw that, I'm gonna be an executive, I'm gonna stop producing altogether. And he could have kept producing and kept some kind of security, but he threw it all the wind and risked it all. And then he did the same thing with beats. And I just think that that's really inspiring, because like, if I die tomorrow, this is it. Like, cool. I hope that in 10 years, you're talking to me about a completely different lane of success, because I want to try different things.
Right.
I don't want to swim freestyle my whole life. I want to try backstroke.
Yeah, yeah. So does there have to be a balance, though, between this constant yearning for more, not more financial success or that sort of thing, but just more ideas, more growth, more projects? Is there a balance between that and being able to enjoy your success and resting a little bit on your laurels to spend time with your family?
I think people need to decide that for themselves. I think there's people in history that we admire so much that weren't great family people, and they transformed our society, and we admire everything that they've done. I just don't personally want that. You know, I'm not saying that isn't a life fulfilled. Maybe that's what they wanted. I personally have come to terms with the fact that I might be able to achieve all my goals in life, or there's a chance that one of my interns asked me, he said, what would make you stop? And I said, if I thought I was losing my wife or my kids. And I personally want that more than I want anything. I have a tattoo from when I was 20 years old. It says family, it's on my wrist. And I put it on my wrist for the reason, it was my only tattoo for a very long time. And the only reason I put it on my wrist was because I wanted to remind myself and have to tell this story for the rest of my life of what I'm doing it for. Because I was working so hard at such a young age, I lost sight of the fact that I wanted a family someday. I was doing it because I wanted to be able to provide a different life for them. And now I have 2 kids, I have the wife, and I have this success, and I don't want to lose sight of that. That this is what I set out for. I think it's important people write down their goals, because otherwise they'll just find themselves in the rat race, continuing. And it's interesting for you guys because your name's success, and the definition gets kind of misconstrued by so many different people. You know, the happiest countries in the world aren't, well, it isn't us.
Right.
And, you know, Harvard put out this study talking about the longest study they've ever done. The #1 correlation to long life is the quality of our relationships. So we're built to kind of interact and be with each other. I think family is the most important part of that, personally to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I have to give up certain aspects of my financial and career success to be a better dad, I'm going to choose that because that's the life I want. And I think people need to choose for themselves. And I struggle with it because I'm very ambitious and I'm very competitive and I go after stuff. And my wife reminds me, like, okay, I understand you're home, but there's a difference between being present and being present.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that balance every single day. And, you know, I want to make sure I don't screw up because to me, the most devastating thing would be to kind of grow up and be this really successful entrepreneur and have my kids think I'm a piece of shit dad.
Right.
Like, that would be the worst thing in the world. So I want to balance this with fatherhood and being a good husband and being a good family member. And I actually have made a conscious decision to share that with the world. And it was a hard decision because at first I was keeping it very private, but then I realized the majority of my happiness is in that. And if I'm giving an image of myself to the world that's going to last even a little bit,
Yeah.
I want to make sure they know what it really is. And I also did it because there were so many, you know, examples coming up in the entertainment industry of what this life was and success, and it was fast cars and fast women and this. And I wanted to show people that there's an alternative, that you can have all the success in the entertainment industry you want and be a really good dad and husband. Mm-hmm. And I hope I'm doing that now because that's one of my goals.
What about tell me about the model that you had for for a father, like in terms of balancing career success with family time?
Well, look, I had an amazing dad myself. My dad, my dad is my hero, and the majority of the stuff that has been the most valuable to me in my career is comes from him, because he's just a good man. And he taught me how to be a good man and be a rock in people's lives, in my own life. And but my dad had a 9 to 5, so he didn't have the entrepreneurial lifestyle. He didn't have, the grind. He even says to me, like, man, that seems hard. Like, my dad got to come home and work out every single day and just stay healthy, and I'm like trying to find time to be healthy in between the 24/7. But he set an example of what was important as a man. And I've always tried to follow that example. I always say, if I'm half the man he was, I'm going to be okay. But as I went through the industry, I started to see people that I wasn't aware of what great family men there were. Jeffrey Katzenberg, amazing family man, amazing kids. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Richard Branson. You think of Richard Branson, you think of the guy who's kiteboarding with the naked girl on his back. But what you don't think about is Holly and Sam, his 2 kids, who literally speak about him the way I hope my kids speak about me someday. And the fact that he's been faithfully married for over 30 years, and he is a grandfather now, and he's an amazing family man. But you always see the James Bond kind of thing.
Right.
And I admire the other stuff that people don't see nearly as much. So there are plenty of examples of that. Lucien Grange, who runs Universal Music, is an amazing example of a family man. But, it's to each their own, and I'm not going to get lost in the sauce. I know what's important.
Right.
Because when I come home and my kid runs up and, Daddy, he doesn't care what I do at work. He doesn't know, he doesn't care. All he wants to do is spend time with me. So if I claim I'm doing it for my kids, I'd be an asshole not to take the time to be with them.
Right.
It's also why I'm rambling now, but I'll tell you this. This is actually cool.
Yeah.
This is something for success. This is something I would say for the magazine, for anyone watching. If you came to my office and my assistant said, we had a meeting, or you called my office and my assistant said, I'm sorry, one of his clients showed up, a very important emergency, he's behind closed doors, you would accept that, no problem. You'd say, that sounds normal, I can understand, he's an important guy, everything else.
Right.
If you came to my office and he said, hey, his son is here, he's playing with him in the room, he needs about an hour, you would actually be disappointed and feel insulted. Most people would. They'd feel absolutely insulted and be like, I don't understand, this guy's lazy. What the hell is wrong with us?
Right.
Like, that's crazy. So there are people who call this office and my assistant says, I'm sorry, he's in a closed door meeting, he's out of the office right now, very important meeting, he'll call you back an hour. You know what I'm really doing? I've told her to put Jagger and Levi time in my schedule for an hour, and I'm playing with my kids for an hour, because why is that not as important as taking an hour with a client?
Right.
It's the whole reason I'm doing this job. So we as a society have got it all screwed up, that we prioritize in our interactions with people and celebrate hard work, but we don't celebrate being there for our families. We claim we do, but we don't.
Right.
And now I've gotten to a point where I don't have time to kind of deal with your emotions towards me, so I have my assistant lie. She just says he's an important closed door meeting.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I take an hour out every morning to spend time with my kids, or in the afternoon, because I feel like that's just as important, if not more.
Doesn't it suck though that you have to create that lie, that it's
I
not
don't have
okay
time to
just
think about it. Sucks. I just got to get it done.
Right.
I understand the idea of when someone's building something and I hear they're going on vacations, that annoys me, because I'm like, you haven't built anything yet.
Right.
And you're going on 15 vacations, you're like, but I got to enjoy the quality of life while I'm building. Well, you're not ready to build then. Because I can tell you, when I was building, there was no vacations. It was 24/7. But I've built something now. And there are times, and I've also now built a family. So I have to be there for both things.
Right.
So I think you can't substitute hard work. I have a rule in my office, you're not allowed to complain unless you work harder than me. And even now, I'm going to outwork these kids. I have to. And but at the same time, I have no excuse. I made 2 lives. I better show up.
All right, Scooter, so before we let you go, we've got a few questions that we ask all of our guests here on Success Talks. So what book changed your life and why?
2 books. Sorry. One was The Operator by David Geffen. He hates the book. I'm sorry I'm saying it out loud, but it inspired me. He inspired me. The other one is Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
It's a really great book. And it kind of talks about that idea of purpose.
What's the best piece of advice that you ever received?
I've received some pretty amazing advice. I think the golden rule is the best piece of advice you can ever give anyone. So I just think, treat others the way you want to be treated.
What are 3 things you can't live without? And leave out your phone, because everyone has to.
Okay. Yale, Jagger, Levi. My wife and my kids.
And finally, how do you define success?
So cliche. Yale, Jagger, Levi. Because, if you give me any obstacle and you say to me I have a 0.001% chance of succeeding, I'm like excited, because that means there's an answer. And I like the challenge of things, and I want to go figure it out. But with family, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of work, but you never know if you're going to find it. Never know if you're going to find, the other half to make it happen. And I feel so fortunate that that has happened to me, and I feel like the greatest success I'll ever have is the fact that now I have like a true legacy. And I really think that when you make life is when you finally understand death. I know that's what happened when I met my first son.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to figure out, how do I love this person more than anyone I've ever loved in my entire life, but they weren't here for all the stuff that I've been through, and I don't even know them. I don't know what this person's he's a blob. I don't know what his personality is.
Yeah.
And then you realize that because they didn't exist, one day you won't exist. And the circle of life will continue, and you realize how insignificant you are, and then you realize how much you got to do to get as much of the good stuff that you've learned into this little blob as possible. So I hope that is my success. I don't think I've done it yet.
But you're on the way.
Trying.
Scott, Scooter, thanks
It's okay,
so much.
we're friends now. You call me
I know.
Scott.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Pleasure.